Should Ozzie Albies ditch switch hitting? And who is my top trade target for the Atlanta Braves this season? I'll answer those questions and many more on today's mailbag podcast of Locked On Braves. So let's get into it.
You are Locked On Braves, your daily Atlanta Braves podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome back to Locked On Braves, part of Locked On Sports Atlanta, where we cover your favorite Atlanta sports teams each and every day. I am your host, Jacob Mastriani. You can follow me on Twitter at shortstopball. Also, make sure you check out my written work over at bravestoday.com. Make sure you follow the podcast on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Send in any questions, comments, or feedback that you have for the podcast. Today's entire episode will be built on those questions that you submitted on a Twitter account at LockedOn_Braves. If you're new to the podcast, you're watching on YouTube, do me a favor, hit that subscribe button. You're watching there as well, hit the thumbs up button. I promise it does really help a lot whenever you do that. And thanks so much for all the support you give me on this podcast. Allow me to do this each and every day. Our everydayers out there: Jordan Watley, Lizzie H, Nate Dogg, Garrett Clemens, Vo from 518, Chad Willie, Charles Pruitt, Ethan Hibble, Ecuadorman, R. Gayton 3, Jamison Bryson, Carmen Collier, and almost everydayer, David Agnesia, Tony Glover, and Fernando Turna. Thank you so much for all the support being everydayers. If you are an everydayer, let me know. I'm making a list. We're creating a gang here. So appreciate you letting me know that. Today's episode is brought to you by Birddogs. Go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti-style tumbler with every order. It's a mailbag episode on this Friday podcast. Apologize for posting a little bit later in the day on Friday. Some internet issues going on over here again, but I think we're all done with that. Either way, got a lot of great questions to get into. Some trade questions, question on Ozzie Albies, batting order, whether to move Matt Olsen down. Got a lot of great stuff to discuss right now. So I'm looking forward to getting into these questions and talking about this upcoming series with the Mariners. And also a fan favorite is back as well. We got that news Friday morning, so I'll discuss that later in the podcast. But let's jump right into the questions. First one from Casual GA Sports Fan. He says, we know Ozzy won't do it, but do you think Ozzy would hit better righty on righty than he does lefty on righty? And, you know, it's a hypothetical question. Obviously, we won't know until we see it. What I do know is that in his career as a left-handed batter versus right-handed pitcher, he's slashing 245, 305, 427. That's a 731 OPS. Not terrible by any means. I mean, still over 700. It's not all-star level like we're capable of, or we're used to him seeing from the right-handed side versus left-handed pitching. That's for sure. It is obviously worse than from the other side of the plate. Do I think he would hit better righty on righty? That's again, a hypothetical question. I can't answer that, but again, I do want to point out it's not like he is unplayable as a left-handed hitter. 731 ops, you know, not the worst in the world. Probably somebody you'd want to bat further down in the order, but he still shows a good amount of power, 427 slugging percentage against right-handed pitching. Now, it all comes down to, does he feel comfortable righty on righty? You know, I can sit here and speculate all day, but if the batter doesn't feel comfortable doing it, then I don't want him to do it. And right now, Ozzie Albies says he doesn't want to do it. Now, if he were going to, I don't want to see him do it in the middle of a season either. It'd be something I'd like to see him try out in spring training and then maybe into a season and give it a month or two and see if, you know, it is better. Because right now it's just speculation and going on what the hitter says. And right now the hitter says he doesn't feel comfortable doing that. So I don't want him to do it. But I am curious to see for sure. But again, not in the middle of the season. I think that's something that you would try out in the spring training and into the beginning of a season. Next question, Whit Price. What do you think it would take to get Solaire, and are there any good reliever options on the market? And he mentions Daniel Bard. I don't think it would take much to get Solaire, but the Marlins are in win now mode. I mean, I did my Through the League segment yesterday. The Marlins are second in the NL East, the only other team with a winning record. They got some good young pitching that's keeping them in games. They need all the offensive help they can get. So I think they're going to hang on to Solaire. He had a walk-off home run for them the other day. So I think they're going to hang on to Solaire. Things do fall apart and he becomes available at the trade deadline. I don't think it would take too much to get him, but I think the Marlins are trying to turn this thing around and become a winning club again. And, Solaire's got to be a big piece for that to happen for them. As far as relievers, there will be some good relievers available. I think there always are, but it won't happen until the trade deadline. If you're going to get a reliever now, it would be somebody, a middle reliever type. You're not getting any back-end relievers on the trade market right now. There just isn't that urgency for a team to trade somebody with that much value. Might as well just wait until the trade deadline when there's a lot of other teams competing and upping their offers for that reliever, and you're probably going to get a better price, unless you're just willing to completely overpay for somebody right now. I don't think you're going to see too many good relievers moved until closer to the deadline, but there'll be some available for sure. There always are. Gabrielle Bonilla says, what is the player you would like to see the Braves trade for this year? Obviously don't know who all is available, but if there's one team I'm going after, if things don't turn around, it's the White Sox. I live in Birmingham, and that's where their AA team is. And so, I keep an eye on the White Sox because I watch some of those prospects, want to see them come up. It is so frustrating just from an outside perspective watching this White Sox team. There is way too much talent there for them to be as bad as they have been over the last couple of years now. But there, like I said, there is a lot of talent there. And if they wanted to do a complete rebuild, if things don't turn around, and I'm not saying it can't in that Central Division, which, I don't think is too difficult. If they got on a hot streak, I think they can be right back in it. But if things don't turn around and they decide to just tear it down and do a rebuild, I obviously love Dylan Cease. Not sure if we'd have a package good enough to get him. He's got a couple of years of control left, but I love Dylan Cease. I've also always loved Lance Lynn, a guy who is going to give you innings and give you solid innings. I know both of those guys are having a bit of a down year so far, but I still like both of those guys a lot. Lucas Giolito, I probably like him the least of those three, but he only has, he's in his final year and he's having the best season so far out of those three. So there'd be a lot of good starting pitching available from the White Sox. And they got some relievers as well. Joe Kelly, Kendall Graveman, Aaron Bummer, Renato Lopez. So I think the White Sox are a team. If they do tear it down and they can't turn things around, that's who I'd be targeting at the trade deadline. I think there's a lot of good players there that the Braves could use. Kevin Burns says, is there still a mound visit limit this year? What do you think of Murphy and TDA making more visits when some pitchers give up a few hits or don't get a strike call since they don't have as much time to settle down with the pitch clock, also an everydayer? So I appreciate, Kevin, you being part of that everyday gang as well. There are still mound visit limits. I believe they actually reduced it to 5. And I feel like in the several games I've watched this year, it's actually come into play. You almost never heard of a team running out of mound visits. And I've seen a couple of times this year where teams quickly gotten down to 1. So I think you are seeing that across the league a little bit more, especially with the pitch clock. And, if the pitchers and catcher aren't on the right page, or you don't want to waste one of those step offs that you will see more mound visits now. Whether or not the Braves are doing it more, I haven't noticed that. And maybe it's something that they could do, especially with a lot of these young pitchers that the Braves have right now. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world to have them maybe take an extra mound visit or two to calm them down. When you see things getting away, maybe mentally, like you said, maybe they got a pitch clock violation and that's in their mind. I've seen that with pitchers this year who get that pitch clock violation and they let it, struggle, allow them to continue to struggle and they can't get over it mentally. So I think that's a good point, and maybe we see them do more of that. Like I said, I think I have seen it more across the league, but I'm not sure it's something that Murphy and Travis d'Arnaud are doing a ton. Lovable Sports says, what's your too early prediction over under 3.5 Braves to make the All-Star game? I think if you look at it right now, Ronald Acuna Jr. is a lock. Strider, I think, is a lock as well. And I think Murphy is a lock right now too. So I think those are 3 locks at this moment for the Braves. And I think Ozzie Albies is almost a lock that would put you over that. He has a good chance at second base. You're looking at Luis Arraez right now, Thairo Estrada, as possible candidates for second base. So I think Ozzie has a good chance to make it at second base as well if he continues to hit like he has been over the last several weeks now. So I would take the over. Morton, if he continues to pitch like he has his last 4 starts, I think could be a candidate. Obviously, if Bryce Elder keeps doing what he's been doing, he might be a candidate as well. So I'd go over. I'll say Acuna, Strider, Murphy, and Ozzy get in on the All-Star team, going over those 3.5 there. So I appreciate the questions there. I got several more to get to as well. Talking about Matt Olson, should he move down in the lineup? The adjustments that Acuna has made, what's made him so spectacular this season. We'll answer those questions here next. Sorare is a revolutionary fantasy baseball game and marketplace, transforming fans into owners with officially licensed digital cards featuring players from across all 30 MLB teams. We've been telling you about them all season long. If you haven't joined the Sorare revolution so far, make this your time to do so. And when you do it, make sure you go to sorare.com/locked-on. Use our URL to do it, as it does help support the show. When you do so, I've been playing just about all year long, and it's a lot of fun. There's 2 cycles each week, a 3 and a 4-day cycle, so multiple chances to win prizes, and prizes can include scarcity cards, game tickets, merchandise, signed jerseys, VIP experiences. So there are a ton of great rewards here. They obviously get better the better competition that you're competing against, but it's just a lot of fun to build these teams with these cards, compete against other players, and try to win these prizes. It really has been a lot of fun. Like I said, it's a revolutionary game that's really catching on. A lot of people doing it. But if you are not one of those who have done it yet, go to sorare.com/locked-on. Draft your team, a free player card, set your lineup, and start competing today to win those epic rewards. Again, that's sorare.com/locked-on to start playing today. The Braves resume play on Friday night against the Seattle Mariners. They're back home. The game starts at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. This is one of the more exciting series of watching all the Braves season last year, so it should be another fun one again. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. And if you hear me over there on the SiriusXM app, let me know. Shoot me a DM on Twitter or however. Let me know if you hear my voice over there on SiriusXM, as we do have ad spots there now during the games. All right, getting back into the questions. Cavs Buckeyes says, has Ronald Acuna turned his strikeouts into ground balls? A very interesting question here. I don't think there's a correlation necessarily, other than he's making more contact, so you're going to see more ground balls. Now, his ground ball percentage is up to 53.5%. That is a very high ground ball rate. That doesn't concern me because of his speed and because of the shift going away. And I think you're seeing more balls to get through that right side that maybe didn't get through, or through that left side of the infield that maybe didn't get through last year. But it is a pretty high ground ball rate for somebody who has as much power as he does. Last year, his ground ball rate shot up to 57.7%. It's even higher than that this year, obviously. And that was way up from where it was in 2021, which was just 31.8%. Now, I think we're seeing a trend here with all these home runs over the past week or so. You're starting to see that correct itself, I guess you could say. Again, I don't have too much concern with somebody like him putting the ball on the ground because of his speed. He's going to beat out a lot of those ground balls to the left side, or he hits the ball so hard, a lot of those are going to sneak through the left side now because of the shift going away. So it's not a major concern for me overall. I want to see Ronald Acuna Jr. putting the ball in play however he does it, and he's been doing that at a great clip this year. Matt says, we all thought the banning of the shift would benefit Olsen. He is struggling mightily with putting the ball in play consistently. I feel he needs moved out of the 2 spot. We wasted so many opportunities with Acuna getting on, and I feel a big reason is Olsen's struggles. Who should we put in the 2 hole? And so I think lineup construction right now is a very relevant conversation to have, and not just the struggles of Olsen, but the struggles of Riley as well. I've been saying, I think going on 2 weeks now, that Riley needs to be moved down in the lineup. You're starting to see that some now, with Snicker putting Ozzy in the 3 hole, Murphy in the 3 hole, and bumping Riley down 1. But Olsen's been in that 2 hole pretty much all year long, if not all season long. And yeah, it may be time to move him down as well, putting him 4th or 5th in the lineup. But then who do you put in that 2 hole? Do you put Ozzie Albies there? And, if Sean Murphy's in the lineup, do you go Acuna, Ozzy, Murphy, Riley, Olsen? I like Ozzy hitting behind the lefty, and I really prefer Ozzy hitting more down in the lineup in that 5th or 6th spot where he can drive in the runs with the extra base power that he has. Orlando Arcia is one that I've kind of been thinking about the last couple of days. Again, I don't want to mess with what he's been doing at the plate, but it's a pretty good sample now, at least a month so's work that we've seen from Orlando Arcia, and he is still hitting the ball extremely hard. He's still getting on base a ton. Perhaps do you move him in the 2-hole right now? I know you want to go righty lefty to start off the game, but maybe you go Acuna, Arcia, Albies, Riley, Olsen, wherever you got to put Murphy in there, I guess, at the top two. You don't want to go 3 straight righties to start off the game, but maybe Acuna, Arcia, Albies, Murphy, Olsen, Riley. I don't know. It's tough. I don't know what the best answer is there, but I do think it's time to at least entertain switching the lineup up a little bit just because of the struggles of Olsen and Riley in particular. I talked the other day about the struggles with runners in scoring position where Olsen and Riley have just been dreadful so far this season. All the double plays that we've seen, I think it may be time to move them down in order a little bit, at least until they get going. And I think we've seen signs of that over the last week in particular for both Riley and Olsen. But until we really see them with a good stretch of consistency and good at bats, I think maybe it is time to move them down into the order and give somebody else another chance, whether that be Arcia, Albies, Sean Murphy. I think those are the 3 candidates to put at the top of the order and move Olsen and Riley down a little bit. It's not an easy task for Brian Snitker. I'm not saying that at all, but I think this is probably something that should have been done a week or so ago, at least in the case of Riley. He should have been out of the 3-hole a long time ago, in my opinion. But a good question and a good discussion. We can continue that down in the comment section if you'd like. E. Goldie, feel free to make fun of me for asking this, but would you consider thinking about extending Ronald after this year or next? Treat the last few years of his deal like his arbitration years and buy them out. So I think we're still a year or two away from this even being a conversation, just because you have him locked up through 2028 with those 2 team options in 27 and 28. It's still, a very good price for being the best player in all of baseball. So I don't think you consider that at this point. You never know with injuries. We've already seen, him with the ACL injury and him being out basically a year and a half, because last year, obviously we saw him coming back from that injury. It was not himself, and then losing him for half the year the season before. So you never know with injuries, and you have him locked up already for so long that I don't really think there's a reason to consider it at this point. And while I don't think Acuna is mad about the deal that he has, he's still making really good money. I think you do have to notice, and I'm sure he notices, all these other mega deals that players are getting. And maybe you're talking about giving him a mega contract like that. And I think that would be a good gesture by the Braves, but probably not the best business move when you have him already under control for so long. But going back to the point, I think for Acuna's sake, you see all these mega contracts being given out. You're really going to have one shot at getting one of those going into your age 31 season after he's done with the Braves, assuming those 2 team options are picked up. He may just want to, test free agency at that point and see if he can get that big mega deal, because he's really only going to have one shot at it. So, would the Braves consider it? Maybe, but I think we're probably at least 2 years away from that being in consideration. So, not going to make fun of you, E. Goldie. Appreciate your questions as always. Bellfire, does Ronald Acuna Jr. need a day off? Worried about fatigue since his last home run only was less than 450 feet. Kidding aside, what has been the most impressive part about this season so far? For me, that's easy, and we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier. It's the strikeout rate. I mean, he's gone from a 23.6% strikeout rate, which is not bad at all in today's game, and especially for somebody like him with the power that he has, but it's gone down to 13.7% this year. He has dropped his K rate 10% so far this season, and the walk rate has gone back up to around 13% after it dropped down to 10% last year. So that, for me, is one of the most impressive parts about this season for Ronald Acuna Jr. To be able to cut your strikeout rate 10% from not just where he was last year, where he was injured, and he was having some issues there, but that's pretty much what it's been his career. He's been a guy kind of like Mike Trout, who is unbelievably talented and does great things, but he strikes out a lot, and you just kind of come to accept that because there's so many other good things about his game. But Acuna's retaining all those other great things about his game, and now he's striking out 10% less of the time. That's just incredible. And I think that, to me, is one of the more impressive parts of a very impressive season so far for Ronald Acuna Jr. Now, you joke about the days off. I'm honestly a little surprised he's not getting a day off here and there because, of coming off the injury. Now, how do you take him out of the lineup? And I don't want him to get any days off. I don't want him taken out of the lineup, but I do worry a little bit about fatigue as the season goes on, coming off the injury, coming off, all the battles he had last year with the injuries. I do worry a little bit about fatigue with all these players throughout the season. I talked about it coming into the year, giving Riley, giving Olsen, giving these guys days off here and there, where the Braves and Snicker just haven't done that much in the past. And then we see them kind of cool off and be fatigued at the end of the season like they were last year. So not just a Ronald Acuna Jr. thing. I think that's a team-wide thing that maybe we should see some of these guys get more days off, maybe 1 or 2 days a month to try and keep them fresh for the end of the season. Final question here from Large Lar. He says, is it time to worry about Michael Harris, or as long as his defense is okay, just let him work his way out of his slump? He's been so up and down this year, and I think the back issue is maybe more than we realize, and maybe it is somewhat of a lingering thing. I mean, back issues can just be so much trouble and pain, and it's, it doesn't just go away. And I know he had, significant time off, but I think maybe that's something that's not only messing with his timing, but messing with his power and his swing right now, maybe more than we realize. I do think you ride it out, because what are the other options? And he's going to give you great defense. That. So I think you do just have to ride it out. And if the other guys in the lineup are doing what they should, and you're batting Harris 8th and 9th in the order, I'd like to see him just stay in that 9 hole and see if that can get him going, batting in front of Acuna. But I think you do just ride it out because of the defense, and you're hoping the other guys in the lineup are producing enough that you don't really notice or worry too much about Michael Harris. But he is batting under 200 right now. It definitely is concerning. I tend to think it has more to do with the back issue and the timing issues just being up and down so much this year. So hopefully he does get it going. Obviously, it'll be a huge boost for this lineup. You get him going back like he was last year, and really like we've seen throughout his professional career so far, would be a huge boost for this lineup. All right, next we'll talk about Charlie Culberson coming up to join the Braves and set you up before Friday night's game between a couple of Bryces. We'll discuss that here next. Our next sponsor, Birddogs, is one of the better sponsors that we've had so far, because they sent me a couple pairs of shorts, and I've absolutely loved them, and I've been wearing them ever since so far. It's just really comfortable. I work from home, so I know about comfortability. All I typically wear are gym shorts, but now all I'm wearing are these Birddog shorts that I got, because not only are they comfortable, but they fit well. One thing I really like about them is just how cool they are. And I don't mean cool as in looks, but cool as in feel. For somebody who lives in the deep South, having some clothes that give you a sense of coolness is very important to me. So I love that about these shorts. And not only that, I do work from home, but I'm constantly going out of the house, picking up kids, dropping them off, taking them to doctor's appointments, all of that. And it's great that I don't have to continue to change clothes to look acceptable for the public, but I can wear these wherever I go, and they're just as comfortable as my gym shorts that I wear at home. So loving my Birddog so far. Thank you so much for sending me a pair of these, because they really have changed my life. If you want to try some out, go to birddogs.com/lockedonmlb. And when you enter the promo code LockedOnMLB, they'll throw in a free custom Birddogs Yeti style tumbler. Again, that's birddogs.com/lockedonmlb, promo code LockedOnMLB. So we heard the news on Thursday that the Braves were sending back down Braden Shoemake, which, thank goodness, I was so tired of seeing him just rot away on the bench up here. I realized the Braves don't have any other options at shortstop right now, and that's why you had to keep one of Grissom or Shoemake up there with Adrianza on the IL. But man, I hated seeing Braden Shoemake just waste away and rot on the bench and not continue to play. So I'm glad the Braves were able to send him back down where he can start playing every day again. This guy was off for 2 weeks, didn't have a single at bat for 2 weeks for a guy they're trying to develop, trying to see if the bat is real and see if he's maybe the potential shortstop of the future, although that looks like Arcia at the moment. But you give them 2 weeks off, and I get it. They're in a tough spot. There's nothing else they could really do. You got to have somebody to back up shortstop. But I just really hated that for Braden Shoemake. So now maybe he can go back down, play every day once again. And replacing him on the roster, it's not Adrianza. They shifted him to the 60-day IL because we cannot get rid of Adrianza. But they're bringing back up Charlie Clutch. Charlie Culberson is back with the Braves, so that's exciting. I always love Charlie Clutch. I get it. He's not a great player. There may be better players down there that they could stash on the bench, but why not bring up Charlie Clutch just for what he can do for you in the clubhouse? A great guy, great leader. So I love the move. I love the decision. Again, Braden Shoemake just sat on the bench for 2 weeks and didn't get any action. This is not a big deal. You're likely not going to see Charlie Culberson get much playing time at all with the DH nowadays. So it's the 26th man. He's hardly ever used, like I said, now with the DH today. So why not bring up a guy like Charlie Clutch, who you know is a great clubhouse guy, and you know everybody loves him. So glad to see Charlie back up with the Braves. As far as Friday night's matchup goes, they'll start a 3-game set with the Seattle Mariners. This was one of the more entertaining series that I watched last year with the Braves. This will be on Apple. It'll be on Apple on Friday night. It'll be on Fox on Saturday, and then Back Valley on Sunday. So prepare accordingly. Try to get I think there's still at least a 2-month free trial out there for Apple Plus that you can sign up for if you haven't already. I've been saving mine for this series, so I'm going to sign up for mine to watch this one. So just be prepared for that for TV this weekend. On Friday, it's Bryce Miller versus Bryce Elder. And Bryce Miller has been unreal for the Mariners since coming up. Bryce Elder has been unreal and more than we would have expected for the Braves so far this season. For Miller, it's a mid to upper 90s fastball that isn't getting touched right now. He's throwing it 63% of the time, and nobody is hitting it. It's got a lot of life on it. It's 99th percentile in fastball spin rate. But in 28 batted ball events against his fastball this year, hitters are batting just .093 against his fastball. So that'll be what to watch on Friday night with Bryce Miller. He locates it really well. Can the Braves hitters get to that? You got some really good fastball hitters on this team. Obviously, Acuna, Murphy, and others as well. So hopefully they can get to that fastball, get to Bryce Miller, and we see Bryce Elder continue to do what he's been doing, give the Braves a chance to win this game and get out to a good start on this series. So we'll see if the Braves can do that. That will be on Friday night against the Seattle Mariners at 7:20 p.m. Eastern. It's again Bryce Miller versus Bryce Elder at Truist Park. Catch every pitch of the Braves' hometown broadcast with SiriusXM on the SXM app. Search Braves. That will do it for this episode of Locked On Braves. Thank you so much for listening, making Locked On Braves your first listen of every day. And thank you again to all my everydayers out there. Let me know down in the comment section if you are one of those everydayers. All right, make sure that you follow us on Twitter at LockedOn_Braves. Follow me at Shortstop Ball. Also, make sure that you rate, review, and subscribe to the Locked On Braves podcast wherever you get your podcast. And we will talk to you next time.